Hello, and welcome to episode 234 of The Crate and Crowbar. It is the 11th of April, 2018. My name is Chris Thurston, and tonight I'm joined by Tom Senior.
Hello.
And Alex Wiltshire. Don't you dare say toot.
Can I just start this by making a very formal and very significant apology for my behaviour last week?
That's appreciated, but a flute tooted can't be untooted, Alex.
There's no going back.
It was a flute toot riot.
But you've invited me back, and for that I am very grateful.
A second chance. In some ways, probably a third chance by this point. If you don't know what we're talking about, just listen to the 4.5 minutes of chaos that's set in very late in last week's podcast. Thanks to Alex's inability to pronounce the word fruit under duress. Nonetheless, we've bounced back. Tom, it's good to see you on the podcast again. It's been a while.
It feels like it's been a while.
Yeah. Not for you and I recording a podcast.
No, we were playing Miniatures Monthly, just the other day.
Indeed. And that's out right now. But, you know, for this, the video game's hot take toot machine, whatever it is this is called, the Crate and Crowbar, that's the one. So we should talk about some news. We should start by talking about news of today, which is that due to some privacy setting changes, specifically the fact that the information about which games you own on Steam is no longer public by default, Steam Spy can no longer operate. Steam Spy being a sort of API driven service supported by Patreon, that allows people to see how many copies a game has sold approximately by relying on public Steam data. And the creator of Steam Spy tweeted this morning that because of this change to Valve's policy, he can no longer operate Steam Spy. Which
is a change for good in terms of personal privacy.
Yeah, it's interesting, I guess, seeing how this has been received.
Era of Zuckerberg.
Yeah, that's surely it, right? I mean, so I've seen some conspiracy theories about publisher pressure forcing them to finally close the loophole. But this has been around for years.
Yeah.
And it feels like if they really cared that much about publisher pressure, then they would have done this. The difference is Zuckerberg's in front of Congress talking about privacy concerns, and it's become an international issue.
Yeah.
So it feels like they're just trying to get ahead of something, perhaps anticipating some regulation that might come down the line, which the markets are as well, with Facebook and a lot of other things. So it feels like a customer focused move. Or have I fallen for Valve's?
I don't know. I mean, so the other side of it is, I believe, and though I'm fishing a little bit in the dark here as well, I believe this might have been a subject that came up at GDC a bunch.
I don't know.
And it just strikes me that this is very soon after GDC for a policy decision like this to come in, and it's the type of environment where people will discuss these kinds of things. It could be that what was discussed at GDC is, the privacy bus is coming and everybody's jumping up and down on Mark Zuckerberg. So, you know, maybe that's the reason. I don't know the reason. I think maybe more pertinent is just the sort of the range of responses to this.
Yeah, it's been fascinating.
Because it is one of the only, or was one of the only ways of getting a glimpse of sort of how a game was doing, how viable maybe it was. If it was a multiplayer game over a certain amount of time, what was making waves and what wasn't, ways of contextualizing what people might be saying about their games and so on. Now, probably rightly, that information is purely at the control of the developer in question.
Yeah.
But yeah, we enter a new era of not
flailing in the dark.
Yeah, flailing in the, well, basically not endlessly, kind of trying to make heads or tails of what's doing well and what isn't, and so
it's
on.
kind of it just intersects with so many sort of discussions that are going on in the kind of the sphere. So on one hand, you have some developers who are using that Steam Spy's data to make decisions over the kind of games that they made and, what creative direction to go down, to basically put a divining rod up to figure out, in this great chaotic time of the indie apocalypse, our Lord, the indie apocalypse, to kind of, sort of wrest some sort of control. On the other hand, you've got a lot of people saying success isn't only about sales, and also, a number of sales is never equal. You know, like 2,000 sales at $30 is very different to 2,000 sales at $5, you know, whatever.
Right. Yeah.
So, you know, and also you've got, you know, production costs and things like that. I think a lot of the time that data was being used as a kind of a barometer of success and therefore viableness and of, quality and kind of worth in the world, which is, you know, but I think that is down, you know, that's just human nature. I certainly found its kind of numbers extremely helpful for getting a feel for things.
Yeah, I think it was always hard to derive really meaningful information from a lot of kind of what's doing well, what isn't at any given time, because it has been so chaotic for so long.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. Like, I think it's pertinent to maybe something we'll go on to talk about, but I used to look at it a lot when, sort of trying to figure out, because given that a lot of my favorite games are Doom shooters, specifically, like being able to have a sense of, not beyond simply the kind of anecdotal sense of like, how long did it take me to find a game, or how many times am I seeing the same username when I log in to play a multiplayer game? Having something that lets me know, particularly when I used to be reviewing these sorts of games, oh, this is actually getting momentum. This is building every day, or this is actually hovering around a sort of, you know, a stable population, or, oh, this is not doing that. Was really handy use of that. And actually that I think was in the quote unquote consumer interest, because, that's an example of where maybe sharing data is to the benefit of everybody, because it lets you know where your kind of time and energy might be best invested in that specific case. But
Sorry, will this hide concurrence then, and that kind of those stats that?
Yeah, I don't know, because obviously the other resource is, Steam stats.
Steam's own charts are the other.
Because I completely agree. Those have a very specific customer, focus. You know, it's good for customers that those exist for multiplayer games. I think, I'm not going to mourn the loss of this data around single player games, because a single player game just, you know, doesn't matter. The person consuming it doesn't need to know how many units it's sold in order to enjoy it. But obviously the ongoing life and health of a multiplayer game, if it's completely multiplayer focused, if you're going to invest in it, you should be able to see kind of the health of the community and how long you might expect it to last. So I think Lawbreakers was definitely fell prey to this, because you could just look at its concurrence and be like, wow, this thing isn't happening.
Yeah, in that sense, it might even be a good thing. And maybe that brings us naturally on to the next thing we're going to talk about. But, you know, I really, really, really liked Lawbreakers, but I had the sense of like, this doesn't feel like it's getting the critical mass of players it needs to be viable.
And of course the story that it had a low player base became kind of almost itself kind of building.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, and so this maybe brings us on to what we're about to talk about, which is Radical Heights, which is the new game by Boss Key, which is the studio that made Lawbreakers. Lawbreakers being the kind of very kind of throwback, very technical arena shooter released by Clifford Blazinski and friends last year. Which I liked a great deal. I really, really, really enjoyed it. I played it for 2 happy weeks, basically, which is plenty of time to really enjoy something. Because I reviewed it, I ended up interviewing, Cliffy B afterwards and talking to him about it. And he was sort of, he was actually very, very open about how, it was not necessarily an easy launch. It didn't necessarily find loads of players straight away, but he was very hopeful about, the game has subsequently work has ceased on it. This is maybe some context, but he was very hopeful about it, but also he was frustrated that the story had become this game isn't selling rather than this game is good. And I don't think outlets necessarily bear responsibility, but there's certainly a point where it's,
that became the story, but there was actually it was critically acclaimed, Lawbreakers. We reviewed it really highly. Evan wrote about it several times about why it was great. We saw other outlets writing about why it was brilliant. And I think I'd put it more down to the way the game looked. It looks on the surface level very similar to a lot of other games that are out there, even though it obviously has a lot more technical depth to it. And is a kind of an interesting throwback to old school shooters with high movement and, high lethality, rocket shooting, that kind of stuff. But that cell didn't get through. It was almost like the marketing couldn't penetrate the mass of other similar shooters like Overwatch and stuff like that.
Yeah. I also think mechanically, movement heavy shooters have a pretty hard cap on their audience size, I suspect.
Yeah, that's true.
I think you know, I mean, COD has experimented with having a little bit of free running or whatever, but even then it was Titan Light, basically, you know, like, it was, there's definitely a correlation in my mind between games like that, Tribes, you know, Quake Arena in the modern era, not when it was a kind of 90s be all and end all, Titanfall, etc., that have struggled for basically the same reasons. I don't think it's necessarily a surprise for Lawbreakers. But I do think that it struck me, because I was really enjoying it, that maybe, and I guess it's anecdotal each way, and I know the PC Gamer, for example, covered it a lot, but it's a very PC Gamer sort of heartland kind of thing. I was definitely seeing, not just in terms of coverage, but in terms of like tweets, what people are tweeting, like, you know, like I was seeing a lot more like, oh man, the sort of, there is a marketplace for sort of like car crash spectator commentary in this industry.
And Glippy B has this sort of people want to see him fall because they perceive him as being this brash playboy. Yeah,
you know, he burst through the wall of a Microsoft E3 conference once holding a chainsaw, and ever since then, like, and I don't say that to be glib, I mean, you know, he's associated very closely with a certain corner of AAA, and therefore there's a, well,
there was the kind of the red sports cars when he was at Epic still.
Yeah,
and all that.
Right. Like there is Twitter mileage in that story, more so than a group of people made actually a pretty cool game. Yeah. Like it's sort of, you know, negativity carries a lot louder. I'm not saying that to maybe say that, you know, Team Spire was wholly a force for similar kinds of things, but, you know, that's maybe one of the reasons I'd be glad to see that information go purely to the discretion of the developers, is it does make it harder for that to become
the be all
and end all story, like how's it doing today type thing.
Mm-hmm. But Radical Heights.
Yeah.
Radical Heights to me feels like the kind of the last grasp for the studio, like the point at which they had to get this, presumably. So the Bosky continued supporting Lawbreakers into kind of what was evidently Oblivion, you know, trying to kind of maintain some sort of hope for Lawbreakers until, you know, publisher relationship meant they didn't need to, or whatever was going on. Radical Heights presumably was being made worked on at the same time, but they've had to rush this out. Like it looks like a game that has been hurried to this line, this early access release line.
Yeah, so it's a battle royale, that has gone into free early access extremely quickly, like from announcement to please play it now, straight away. And it has a sort of 80s retro laser grid perspective thing. Tubular, radical, high tops, skateboard, BMX, neon, pastel blue thing going on.
I don't get it, Chris.
No.
As a 42-year-old man, I think I'm 42.
Yeah.
This should be my era. Like it should be. This is like late 80s.
Yeah, 80s maybe correspondent Alex.
Very late 80s. Maybe early, like 91 or something like that. Like people who actually were young and possibly saying tubular at the time. I won't deny or confirm that. I'm too old to play anything quite like that now. Like it's the worst. But does that mean the kids now? Do they get into all this tubular stuff? Is that?
They just can't get out of those tubes, kids.
Like when I was, you know, you kind of, I suppose you're always looking back to an era in any any decade. You're kind of looking back fondly on another one. Strange. It doesn't have the Stranger Things vibe. It doesn't have like the warm kind of 80s kind of, feel. It has the sort of shit bit of the 80s or that particular part of the 80s.
It feels like, there's a wide band kind of, so they even announced this with a kind of 80s style toy advert. I think maybe part of it is that is a very dated marketing idea now. Yeah. It's been done so many times. And it's been done better. Like Strafe did it better. Far Cry Blood Dragon did exactly the same idea to a higher standard of fidelity. Like I feel like pop culture got this out of its system with Kung Fury. You know what I mean? Like we don't need any more of that.
It proved.
Like we did
Drew
it.
the line.
You know,
Let's not do anymore.
like, you know what I mean? Like, okay, we've exhausted humanity's capability to care about Knight Rider. Maybe that's not true, but you know what I mean? Like that sort of radical Saturday morning kids cartoon toy advert thing is played out. Whereas I would say that the Stranger Things thing, which is the sort of, you know, Goonies, Stephen King kind of form of 80s, horror 80s, is maybe still got some margin. Like, Blackout Club, Question's new game, Thomas's new game. That looks cool. I haven't seen a game that looks like that. And that is still very much rooted in the era of riding a BMX around wearing high tops. But I think it's the sheer irony levels are just sort of, I mean, it's clearly doesn't really like that stuff. Like it's taking the piss, you know? It's not a particularly fond rendition. And why should it be? Like anyone who said tubular should be ashamed of themselves. And as someone who experiences shame most of the time. But, and then there's its evident production values, which I have not played yet. It's been out for a couple of days now. I saw on Boss Key's Twitter account, they've done a competition. Send us your videos of doing cool BMX tricks. So you can ride a BMX in the game and there are kind of like, what are those kind of skateboard ramp things?
Half pipes.
Half pipe. There's a half pipe and you can do
half tubes.
But the physics are janky as hell, and combined with a bit of kind of network kind of, you know, things. And I watched someone submit a video to the competition in which he starts to roll down the half pipe and then reverses instantly up into the sky, spins around for a while and then back down. And you know, I think as a general tip to any game studios out there, make sure your game is solid before you invite people to use.
You say that, but sorry, Tom, go on.
It's a beautiful artifact because it's a chance for the audience, the wider gaming audience, to see what games kind of look like when they've just should be at the grey box. So, the state it's in is kind of like pre-art pass. It should be like they've done an art pass because they have to put it out there. But it's at that stage where everything should just look like grey boxes and the character should just randomly bounce into the sky and die. And that's just part of what testers have to fix over the course of many months. But now everybody gets to experience that. Everyone gets to see how fucking messed up games are when they're just in a kind of half production state.
Maybe, do you reckon one day, you know, if this is all born out of the nostalgia of American dudes in their 40s for that particular era, do you think 30 years from now, teenagers growing up on like free-to-play, shonky, free-to-play early access survival games will be like looking back fondly on the time, like they'll be obviously ridden with a particular form of agoraphobia where they can't go outside without fearing their legs just going to kind of spring off, become 200 feet long and fly into space.
Oh man, what happened to Jeremy half tubed?
Exactly.
Doing the little dances as well. Like, do you remember? Oh, the Fortnite dances.
Yeah, exactly. But nonetheless, that they, you know, they will be nostalgic for this. Maybe, I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, when it comes to the way the game looks and the sort of marketing and stuff, if you're younger and looking at it, aren't you just going to think, well, this looks like a shit Fortnite? You're not going to think anything about the 80s. You're just going to be like, well, this Fortnite's really cheerful and fun and colourful and
also
well made.
Free.
And also free.
And all my friends are playing it.
I do think that's, it's such a, that is, I mean, I think you said it before we started recording, but that is, I think maybe at the core of the who's this for, thing is, you know, not to say that obviously everybody in the world plays Fortnite apparently, but it's big because it's popular with young people. The young enjoy it. Kids like it. Kids and Drake. They both love it. and so, you know, and Fortnite has a very, generic MMO-ish, omni-accessible kind of art style. No kid born in 2006, hate to do that, gives a flying fuck about Transformers toy adverts.
Yeah. or
don't.
Cliffy B. That's the thing. Like,
Yeah,
he is a game designer of an older era. Like,
but this game is maybe its ideal audience in some ways are people who are as old as Gears of War.
Yeah. Well, yeah, totally.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They were literally being born as he burst through that
Gears
Microsoft
War,
conference wall.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
No, the fates are bind together. Except, that audience will play Plug Bat instead.
Although
Or Fortnite.
I did notice that his name is being less attached to this game than previously, which I think was a smart move. Like, absolutely right. For multitudes of reasons, but I think you can't wish into life something like, especially a game, a battle royale game. Like, they're not easy to make, are they?
I think they might be. I think you might just drop 100 people in a box and give them a pan and say good luck. I'm not saying that they're easy, but I'm saying that
players. Well, how big is
PUBG's 100 players.
But how big is how many players in do you know in Radical Heights?
No. No, I do not. But nonetheless, I'm saying that all games are hard to make. And that goes without saying. I think they're probably on the easier end of the spectrum when it comes to, apart from maybe a netcode. I think in terms of design, they are forgiving.
There's more to be done as well in the Battle Royale. I think there's way more to be experimented with in the Battle Royale formula. And we're going to see a lot of it over the next few years because this is the bandwagon now. Because, if you look at what Fortnite's done, PUBG's done. And I remember when every major publisher had to have an MMO.
And then a MOBA.
And then a MOBA. This is the new thing of that. But I think we're actually probably going to get better games out of it just because the formula is way more interesting and less set in stone than both the MMO and the MOBA to an extent.
Yeah, it feels quite a free and open arena.
And I think there's also, it's nice that, maybe to the credit, Lawbreakers didn't survive this, but there is a desire and a hunger for games that are unforgiving in a way that the mainstream games industry did not consider market viable a couple of years ago. Like, I feel like, I imagine Battlefield and COD will continue to do well. But I really hope these games put a big dent in the notion that what a multiplayer shooter needs to be commercially successful is functionally a circle, like a NASCAR track that you run around in, shooting the person in front of you and getting shot in the back, and shooting the person in front of you and getting shot in the back until you unlock an ACOG site. You know what I mean? Like,
there's a middle ground, like stuff like Rainbow Six Siege, which is excellent. Which is done very well simply by sticking around and just banging the drum and just being quietly very good.
Yeah.
That's a great example that a middle-sized shooter can be viable, I think.
Siege is almost the basis for you can do anything you want, just don't fuck with movement theory. Cause it's like, Siege is so, I re-reviewed it for Eurogamer recently. And, Siege is so strange from a complexity point of view. It's wildly complicated. And it is complicated, and it has a huge knowledge cap, which for me is the most I like Siege a lot. But I'm fascinated, I'm fascinated by the fact that, for me, knowledge caps are the most, or knowledge ceilings, or knowledge, or skill curves, I guess, based, difficulty curves are fundamentally based on your ability to learn facts about how the game works, is the least gratifying. It's the thing you don't get from feel. You just get from doing your homework.
Yeah.
Siege is that game, 100%. Obviously, there's lots of technical stuff you can be good at, but there's so much to learn, whereas something like Tribes or Lawbreakers was always very intuitive. It was about muscle memory and kind of learning these intricate movement systems that you had to get a feel for. You couldn't be told how to do it. And it's fascinating to me, that huge divide in what's successful and what's not.
Yeah, it is really interesting. Similar for Titanfall, where when I played Titanfall the first time, I was like, this is what shooters have to do now. This is so dynamic and exciting, and just you're changing between these robots and then back into a person, and the two skill sets are really different but equally exciting in different ways. And there's so much, Capture the Flag, Titanfall is incredible. It's so good. Just sort of getting a flag, diving onto your friend's Titan, diving off into walls, and the counterplay is so fast and exciting.
And the cache mode is fun as well.
Yeah, and what then just went poof.
Well, they said that it was being played fairly solidly, actually, Titanfall 2.
I think 2's done alright. One also had the problem of a prior era of map pack kind of community annihilation protocols.
It was also released in between Battlefield and COD within weeks of both, if I recall.
2 was, yeah.
2 was.
Yeah.
Okay.
2 was released to die,
good.
basically. Yeah, like this, like, I think there's an irony with this, which is that obviously, a lot of the boss key developers are from Epic, and Epic is a company that was experiencing similar sorts of difficulties. Paragon, their, constantly redesigned, sort of third person MOBA thing, which I quite liked, was formally killed, basically. Fortnite
was incredibly shaky before the Battle Royale.
Fortnite was basically, that feels like a company that was pretty much.
I thought they were, other than the engine, I thought that.
It's funny. I hadn't even obviously I knew Fortnite was huge. I didn't even put the 2 and 2 together until I kept getting emails saying that my, I'd had, failed login attempts to my Epic account and it had been locked. And I was like, why is this and I thought, is this because Epic have closed? And I was like, no, it's because Epic are now the biggest game company in the world. Just overnight, more feels like overnight because of the vast success of Fortnite.
Yeah.
Which is strange. And it's sort of, you can see, I think maybe that's one of the other things about, Radical Heights. And I feel this way about lots of the sort of second generation MOBAs as well. There's this thing of like, what it is designed to achieve from a business point of view is so obvious that there is no love to feel from it. You know what I mean? Like it's very difficult to look at it and think, this is the game somebody always wanted to make.
Yeah.
Or someone's got something to tell me here. Someone's got like a passion here. Which was true of Lawbreakers. It was absolutely true of Lawbreakers. There was like, we fucking love Quake 3 and we want to make 5 different versions of Quake 3 at the same time. Whereas this is, we want to have a viable business.
We just want to survive.
And that's like, that's legit. That's a legit thing to be afraid of, but it's, it's so visible. And like, that's why it can't just be a white box. Cause if it was just a white box, it would be like, please play this.
Yeah.
But
I know they've got to charge for it, but it's kind of also sad to watch people buying it.
Yeah.
No,
it's free, isn't it? It's completely free.
Excuse me then.
And they rolled back some of the kind of, I don't remember exactly what it was, but there was some aspect of it's kind of paid bits, which they rolled back, but because it was accused of being pay to win.
If it's like a big cash grab, they then release it for free and I guess put it in 6 months down the line, put those.
Oh, well, they'll be hoping for cosmetics to rule it.
I wonder if they're hoping to have it bought by,
well, they said
Chinese
we're looking for publishers.
Right.
They've kind of nakedly said that.
Would honestly be my guess.
Yeah. I mean, it's a death row game. Like this is kind of like, if this doesn't get snapped up, we're dead.
Yeah. I think this is the headlong dive at Tencent and Perfect World, basically, arms held high. Yeah, man,
it's horrible.
I
do feel, I massively feel for them. Cause it's, there's a lot of talent that's, as you put it, gone into something with no passion, with necessarily no passion in it because,
No. While we're on the subject, can we talk about how, Brendan Green, the unknown player, doesn't like people calling Plunkbat. Can we talk about that?
He's wrong.
Yeah.
He is incorrect.
Yeah, he's incorrect.
PubG.
Yeah. Well, because they renamed that part of Bluehole PubG company, didn't they?
This isn't it.
Bluehole also not being the great name for a company.
Is it South Korean?
Yes, it is.
Publisher. Yeah, they make different types of games.
Yeah.
What a surprising combination of businesses and ideas to come together. Like a South Korean, they make very different games, publish very different games. And it's like, we'll buy this.
Yeah.
That's the most successful thing until Fortnite.
Yeah, which was just it, but free.
Yeah. Exactly.
What I'm finding, so if this kind of trend continues with Fortnite just sort of, because right now, Plunkbat, yeah, you heard that.
Yeah.
Plunkbat, is now kind of mixed reviews on Steam. There is some kind of backlash going on. It's apparently to do with kind of some sort of lag issues and kind of, I don't know,
cheating,
God knows what.
Yeah.
And cheating and stuff. So, and meanwhile, kind of Fortnite is cleaning up and there's a general feel that kind of, that Plunkbat is is on the back foot. And it's interesting to me that it's kind of possibly mirroring the sort of what happened with DayZ, where DayZ exploded and then Plunkbat came along and eclipsed DayZ, which was of course built off DayZ originally. And then we've got Fortnite kind of exploding underneath kind of, the Battle Royale that Plunkbat kind of sort of
ushered into being less than a year ago. Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of, I wonder where
I think it might, like, honestly,
there's a bit of symmetry going on.
And I think maybe to bring it back to the issue of, tubular bell ends, there's like the problem of like PubG does not have a very inviting tone. It's quite a good looking game, technically. Yeah. I quite like it for that. I quite like walking around the field with my mates. Yeah. But like, I think, I'll link to, Alice O'Connor's article about Bren Gren's unhappiness with Plunkbat. But because she was very funny on that subject, but like she also pointed out that, the name Plunkbat helps to diffuse some of PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds weird tone. Yeah. Like it's very unsure about whether it's like a game show, like an edgy game show, or if it's just a bunch of wankers in a field. Like, it's very, like, it's got that kind of strange tribal tat logo, and like, it's very hard to pin down how you're supposed to feel about anything.
It does look like a kind of corporate retreat airsoft exercise, doesn't it? That kind of vibe to it.
But coordinated. But like, yes, you're right. But like the special guest MC for this like team building like exercise is like a member of Blink 182 who's being paid $20,000.
Which is the kind of like and then the surprising thing is that Brendan Green is a really nice kind of mild mannered kind of lovely guy, who really does not seem to live up to this kind of the all caps Blink 182 member.
Well, it's like, the fact that his sort of avatar in the game, the player unknown is this sort of like leather hoodie, bandana, studded belt kind of mall goth. Like, it's such a strange, I'm quite fond of it because it's so weird,
it was fine when it was the only horse in town, because you kind of like, it was just this weird kind of layer to it, which you could kind of sort of like, God, that's weird. And it kind of made it, I don't know, a bit more interesting. In some ways, sort of weirdly interesting, because you can subvert it. And, when you hear stories about like, there's a Twitter user called Frog Croakley, Nate Crowley, who's a very funny guy, and he likes to play games in silly ways, and he tells tales of how he and his friends play, where he kind of lies on the ground and everyone and all his friends kind of worship him as some sort of king, like in the middle of this war zone, like subverting kind of that aura, that sort of atmosphere was great. But then Fortnite comes along and totally rewrites expectations for what the form is, and it does make Plunkbat look a little kind of
Yeah, and DayZ kind of had this as well, right? Like DayZ was this sort of army surplus shop of broken dreams, but you know what I mean? It was sort of, it looked like armor, and it looked sort of not like armor at the same time, and like on the journey to, and it's a sort of, I think it's a bit of a shame, and like I don't want to shit on those games too much, because actually, like, I think there's charm in subverting those things. There's charm in their kind of relative tonal neutrality as well. I think it can be a place you hang out.
Yeah.
But like, cause Fortnite is, you know, like, I don't know, one day someone will figure out what to call it, but like, there's certainly a post-WoW way that video games look. You know what I mean? Like, Blizzard's vast influence on the palette, UI design, character design. You know, what Blizzard did to the way MMOs look is probably equivalent to what Pixar did to the way animated films look, I think, probably.
Cause like, it's WoW by way of kind of Clash of Clans is the thing.
Yeah, but Clash of Clans is hugely Blizzard derivative as well, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it is possible to make games that don't look like that, but like, it does feel like, you know, how many genres can you think of where the one that's its runaway success looks a bit like Warcraft? You know what I mean? Like, it's all of them, by the way. Like, that applies to MOBAs, obviously applies to MMOs, it applies to this. So yeah, you know, maybe next time the next new big genre shows up, whatever it is, just make it free, make it look a little bit more like WoW than the competitors, and congrats, you've done it.
Titanfall 2 the Titan should have been like giant nightmarish Teletubby things that people, bulbous characters dive into and pilot around.
Honest to God, if they look like
Big Hero 6, that should have been the license.
That would have been great, actually. That's, yeah. I mean, but honest to God, like, there's probably a version where that does really well, where the Titans look like those steampunky things from League of Legends, right? There's, there's certainly a form of, like, video game fantasy world, which is neither fantasy nor steampunk nor anything. It's just the sort of, soft-edged omni-fantasy that, has its, but it just seems to always work, right?
The blob that eats up other genres and incorporates them and sort of rounds them out. Like, here's the samurai bit of the bulbous blob aesthetic, and here's the steampunk bit.
Yes, it's got nothing to say, but you don't want it to tell you anything because you just want
to have fun with your chums.
Chum fun.
You want to just grab that low hanging.
No, no, low hanging loot. Nice. Although, I see you did. You did. You did. Now I feel like a fool. We should talk about a game that we've been playing.
Yeah.
What have you been playing, Alex?
I'd be playing Jalopy.
Oh.
Out now.
Which is now, 1.0. And it's been out for maybe a year or so. I can't quite remember when it first came out, but this is a game set in the former Soviet bloc in something like 1980. So in many ways, you could say
we're going to have a very
Cliffy B was inspired by this one. But this is a little more grim. You drive basically a car. This is which is inspired by the Trabant or something like that, sort of Soviet blocky car. But it's called in this the Leica, and the Leica Deluxe. It's not a very deluxe car, I should say. At the start of the game, you're with your uncle and he tells you how to install your, engine and your air filter and all your bits and pieces into your car. In order to open up the car, you have to pull a lever just by the kind of underneath the driver's, side of the car. And, then the thing opens and you can put things in, and then you kind of have to put the wheels on and you have to tighten up the nuts, and then you drive off. And, it's effectively a game. It's like Elite, with a bit of Resident Evil, but set in driving a car in the former Soviet bloc.
The Resident Evil.
Do you want me to unpack that?
Yeah.
The objective of the game is fundamentally to trade goods between countries. So you're driving along these, motorways and byways and mud tracks and things in this dilapidated car. And as you're driving, kind of, your engine will start to wear out, and you can buy better engine. You can go faster, and you can, you might, if it rains, you'll need better tires and that sort of thing. But that, of course, all costs money. You'll need fuel as well. Two-stroke engine, so you also need oil to mix into the fuel tank. You'll need water to put in there for the kind of, for the radiator and things like that. And so you're trading goods. You're buying in one place and selling it in other places. In the back of the car, you have a number of slots in which you can put stuff. You'll probably want a tire repair kit. You might need some repair tools for the engine itself. You can put spares in there. You'll need fuel tank, fuel canister, bottled water. But then there's some space left over for the stuff you'll be selling. And what I mean by the Resident Evil thing is that it's a bit like the inventory in Resident Evil, where you're trying to slot things in the most efficient way possible. So you're kind of having to find spaces so that things kind of insert in a kind of, in an efficient manner. And then you're driving off.
Is it a grid system or is it like a physics game?
It's interesting. It's not really physics based. You're kind of just, you interact with the rack and it kind of puts it automatically into available space. Yeah. So you've got to sort of put the right thing in, the thing in first, so that it all slots in nicely, sort of thing. So it's kind of, it's all a little janky, which is completely kind of in fitting with the kind of the whole ethos of the game.
Yeah.
But like the game is very janky, and I'm going to be writing about it for Rock Paper Shotgun because, one guy on his own, made it, and he, used to work at, Codemasters on the Formula One games. And so he made a car game, which is the antithesis of Formula One. And it was never really meant to be popular, and it ended up being quite popular because its theme is kind of just very evocative.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a real kind of strange tourist game, strange being in an alternative world, like a semi-real world, but one that is very much, inspired by, real events and real places.
Yeah, something very intriguing just about its color palette and its almost lack of textures. There's a kind of tone to the whole world that immediately comes across through just even still screenshots.
Yeah, it's a low poly, kind of not very much. I think there's any texturing in it. I don't think there is actually. It was very minimal texturing. So yeah, like given that style, actually, it does feel incredibly vintage because everything's brown and grey.
It sounds like there's also a kind of Euro road truck simulator.
He was very much inspired by that, yeah.
Because that is a very specific and wonderful genre that we're slightly obsessed with on PC Gamer, like, especially writers like Andy Kelly, who just every 3 or 4 months will boot up a truck and then just drive for 3 hours at night and listen to the radio in the game. And it's really nice. It's something really, really wonderful about it. Just that sort of quiet and the calm.
Yeah.
And there's something very charming. And this is the thing I get out of miniatures and miniatures painting of, like facsimiles of real life that are kind of caricature them in some way, that it's like seeing a miniature village, right? Being inside one of these cars or one of these fake trucks is kind of fascinating in a way that being in a real truck would just seem ordinary.
Yeah.
There is a strange kind of magic to it.
Yeah, like they kind of intimate that that you're actually learning something about how a real truck works, or because you have to mix in the right amount of oil into the engine, into the fuel tank, and you have to everything is kind of when you set off, you've got to turn the key in the ignition, and you've got to close your door, and you have to grasp the steering wheel, and there's lots about it which is kind of enacted, I suppose is the word. But of course, it's massively abstracted. Like, you're not changing gears, or you're not sort of doing all the kind of weird declutchy stuff that you had to do in old cars and things.
Yeah.
But you get that satisfaction of kind of, I'm doing a thing of complexity. It's a bit like that, I can't remember what's that gun game where
Receiver?
Receiver feel to it as well. Yeah. But it's, I need to play a lot more of it because, I hadn't really got into the groove of going from place to place. There are contraband materials you could get through, but you might get caught as you go through, across borders and things like that. And,
I know that Pip spoke about it on the podcast before, but
she's an aficionado.
Well, but she's chiefly experienced it in terms of, let's say, emergent crisis, in any given kind of environment. Like it's kind of its capacity to generate calamity scenarios. Has that been your?
I haven't played enough to come into that sort of thing, but
right.
You can get into a situation if you run out of fuel halfway between destinations. You kind of have to either hope that there's a kind of a crate that you find kind of just by the side of the road.
Right.
And you have the means to open it, or you walk.
Oh my goodness.
which I quite kind of like the hardcore nature of that. Like, it does mean things.
Isn't your uncle in the car with you?
Yeah.
Does he just sit there?
He just sits there. And then before you go over the border, you're basically in a town like Dresden or something like that. And you go into a motel, you stay the night, and he just lies in the bed next to you. And then you get to read his kind of in his briefcase, and there's like a little story that plays out through that. So about kind of, I'm not quite sure what it is about it, but it's a fascinating game. But unfortunately it's kind of launched with a lot of bugs, a lot of bugs. The kind of bugs that kind of bug a game made by one person, which is actually quite, ambitious. It's doing a lot of things. There's a lot of little systems going on all at once. And I know that the person who made it is, sort of bust a gut to get it into the state it is today, and is kind of, weathering the result, the kind of the outcry that attracts. But, go into it with eyes open and know that every bug is thematically, consistent, and, you might have a lot to love.
No, that sounds cool.
So I've been playing, another sort of 80s. Well, it's set in 2089. That's a form of 80s. And it is deliberately a very 80s story, but I've been playing All Walls Must Fall.
All War Must Fall.
All War Must Fall, which is set in a 2089 Berlin where the, Berlin Wall did not fall and where the Cold War did not end. So in some ways it's just the 80s, but cyberpunk. But more cyberpunk. It's also got a kind of throwback kind of war gamesy side of things. So we're kind of really on a theme.
Yeah.
And I wanted to play, I think I mentioned on the podcast a couple of episodes ago that I wanted to play it because, Tom F had played a little bit of it and gotten started with it. And I find it really fascinating. And I was hoping I've played a couple of hours of it now. I think I've almost finished one campaign. There's an element of procedural generation to it. Construction missions that is, I think, intended to be a game that you replay for mastery, not an especially long campaign. And I've gotten to this point in it now and I still don't feel like I get it, which is, well, it's not weird for me to not get it. It's just, it's weird to kind of, given that it's a game it's been well received, it's reviewed well, it's got a high rating on Steam. I feel like the positive side of it is I feel like there is something that to get from this sort of strategic sandbox. But my experience with it, honestly, has been of constantly feeling like I'm doing something. I'm fundamentally misunderstanding something about what it is about. So when Tom described it previously, it is a isometric sort of XCOM style, tactics game, but it also has some sort of, tonally, it feels a little bit like Syndicate. And it has, it has sort of some stealth elements. You have a mission to complete. And you are a sort of time traveler helping an agent who is being sort of pulled back and forward through time in the hours prior to a disaster to try and unpick the kind of, so in the hours prior to a nuclear explosion, trying to, piece together the various series of events that leads to that happening and prevent them, where all of these events take place inside, Berlin gay clubs, which is an amazing setup. And I really like that about it. And it's a game, it looks really, really interesting and it has a really, really interesting tone. And it's amazing what a difference just its sort of, its idiosyncrasy in regards to its subject matter and its way of kind of framing its characters and kind of just sometimes just presenting you as a club full of naked, hairy dudes it feels very fresh for that reason and really like not unexpected because that's what it's about going in, but it certainly isn't the only, cyberpunk stealth strategy game around or, anything like that, but it has a lovely kind of, sense of itself and also sort of really interesting tone and so on. And because you're a time traveler, your principal kind of power is your ability to kind of rewind time in interesting ways, which is what Tom previously spoke about. You can rewind the world, but not yourself. You can rewind yourself, but not the world. You can undo any act. And those are the kind of fundamental verbs of it. However, playing it as a strategy game with rewind isn't what it is. Like, that's not what it's about. Nor is it really a stealth game. It's kind of, I think, a combo building sort of speed tactics game. It's incredibly complicated in ways that I probably already made it sound incredibly complicated. But my experience of it has been constantly playing it wrong and being quite brutally punished for that because it's very hard. And then getting into strange situations where I think due to a combination of bugs and a very busy interface, I find myself winning when I feel like I have accidentally trial and errored my way to success and losing in circumstances which to me at the time feel completely unavoidable, but maybe aren't. And Yeah, and I know you guys have played it. No, Alex, you haven't, but Tommy, you did.
I played it in like the first week it came into early access.
Right.
I think there was some vital pillars missing at that point.
It left me with a feeling that I don't get very often, which is I want someone to show me how to play it.
When you say it's complicated, is it sort of characters having loads of stats complicated, or is it?
There's a lot of learning what there's. So I think it's a very good looking game, but it's a very busy interface. So on some levels, it's just sort of, there's lots of effects, lots of like screen distortion and effects and things. And so it can be quite hard to precisely know what the consequence of something's going to be. And you learn, and obviously it's a game about undoing mistakes. So to some extent, that's fine. And I feel like it's a game I want to return to because I want to keep playing it because I want to get it. Because, Christian Donlan, who I respect tremendously as a critic, really, really liked it for Eurogamer, and I want to get it because I feel like I've had these strange situations where, so initially, maybe the best way to explain it is initially I saw it as a stealth game with social elements because you go into, your first mission when it's especially on easy mode, you go into a club and there's a dialogue system. And in the dialogue system, you can still rewind. So there's a lot, and it feels a little bit like the love child of Life is Strange and the pheromone combat system from Deus Ex, which is a great idea, right? Especially to incorporate that into a stealth game. So initially I thought it was a game about going to clubs and sort of figuring out how to talk your way past people. And then there is combat, there's shooting and stuff, but you do your objective and maybe that gets out. So all my early successes were all completely, sort of pacifist. I was getting all the pacifist achievements, like you're doing everything with that fighting. But that is sort of complicated by the fact that actually the conversation system doesn't seem to make any sense to me. So when you're talking to somebody, you have 3 bars, and they each have different kind of qualities, a positive quality and a negative quality. And if the bar goes straight down to the negative, then you fail the conversation and fight begins. And if any of them go into the positive, like all the way up to 100%, then you have won the conversation and a good thing will happen. Usually that will just prevent you from getting into a fight or a door will open. And those bars are one of them, like, I can just think about the good ones. The good things you want to hit with people are respect, flirting, and, scaring them.
So which if you fail flirting, you get into the fight.
You get, flirting failure is the message that pops up. Yeah. I think, respect success is one of its better phrases, I think. But it has a big problem so the conversations themselves, there are a finite set of them, but they kind of arrive in remixed form and you pick your response from a choice on the list. But there are some really strange interpretations of what lines mean.
The classic conversational.
I don't think it's not even that. It's not like even skews. And I've learned that there are certain patterns that will normally work regardless of where you encounter that conversation. So one of them is you go into a room, guard turns around and goes, "What are you doing in here?" And if you follow the path, which is like, "I'm here to fix the air or we'll all die," and then say, "You better not dob me in or them upstairs will hear about it," then that normally works. But I've seen, and that will normally fill up the scary part. But I've taken the course off that sometimes, or in a different conversation where you say something like, "I will break both your legs," and then the flirty bar fills all the way up.
Well, he's into
and I don't want to shame anybody for anything that they're into. But like, I feel like you can undo to, try and get the right path to the conversation. But I've definitely been in sometimes it'll just say like, "Who sent you?" And you have a list of names and you just pick one. And sometimes that's like, "Yo, fuck you. I'm going to shoot you." And sometimes like, "Oh, I love that guy you made up." And there's no way to know what's going to work. And that doesn't sort of hugely work. And it ties into quite an artificial system for, if you go into a room that you're not supposed to be in, the first guard you see will turn around and go, "Oi," and you'll have a conversation. If you win that conversation, every guard in that room will no longer aggro you. If you then go into the next room, you'll have to do the exact same thing again. So you can trial and error. In this way, you can kind of brute force neutralize whole chunks of enemies.
It sounds like you're not getting any game though, because I thought it was a tactics game.
Yes, it is. And so I was like, I'm telling this story because this is honest to God my abortive first go at a game that is, I think, this is the thing. I just feel like I am trying to play a different game to the one they've made, but I'm trying to understand the game that they've made. Yeah. Because you do get moments, there are moments that I think are really good that are about challenging your assumption about what's acceptable in a stealth game. So because of your ability to rewind the world, there's a mission, there's a good mission, where you've got to, it's not really a spoiler, basically you've got to find a particular person, and every naked dancing dude in the level is a clone of the same guy. And the moment you arrive in the level, that the right clone, the right person, is in his dressing room, which might be deep in the level. And so there's a bunch of different ways to find him. Well, there's 2 different ways to find him, but the most elegant is to get to his dressing room so quickly that you can then rewind time back to the start of the level and he'll be there, which is really cool. And that means that, like, initially I was doing a thing of, like, go up, talk to the guard on the door. Everything takes time, which is a constant sort of mechanic in the game. Talk to the guard on the door, get in, go sneak. And I realized, actually, no, I'm better off kicking the door down, running, shooting, stunning guards, getting to a safe point in the level, rewinding time, so they just all forget, and then just walking to the club. Because that saves me 8 seconds, which means that I have less rewinding to do later on. All of your use of time powers is based on a resource bar called time resource, which is just TR, basically. You start with a certain amount. You can commit a certain amount to hack rather than break open doors, which prevents things from guards from aggroing, which is a sort of resource management game. You get new time resource by discovering rooms in a club. So if you push back Fog of War, you get points, which means that if you're not fighting, you can also get it from fighting. If you're not fighting, you're not getting any new points, which means there's finite points in the level if you are taking a stealth approach. I learned that kind of the hard way. The first time and this is the sort of experience I've been having.
Oh yeah, so basically it's countering your, like, sort of game literate kind of assumptions about how it would work.
Yeah. And sometimes that's good. Like, assuming that it's actually okay to be caught sometimes because you can.
But if the game isn't kind of helping you understand that, you know, as it's running along, then it's probably a problem. Yeah.
Well, like, so the first time I got to the dressing room in that particular mission, I'd taken a much more laborious route to get there. And it said, you know, you can either find the guard office and find out where the right clone is, or you can rewind until they were in this room. And I was like, oh, brilliant. That sounds much more elegant. I'm going to do that. And I had a full bar. But because of the amount of time I'd taken to get there, my full bar of time points was not sufficient to get to that point in time, but there was no way for me to know that until I started holding down the button. And I spent all my time points, and I couldn't get any more. And I didn't know how to get any more, really. And I was still learning, but like, I tried this situation of like, oh, I just lost. Oh, and then I went back to the main menu, reset the mission, did it again, which didn't feel right. It's frustrating.
Yeah, it's kind of good, and kind of like getting more time resource for opening more levels is very roguelike-y, you know, sort of like there's I'm trying to think there's a game in which by opening space you do get kind of hunger stuff back or whatever it is. Anyway, yeah, like that's a really counterintuitive
it
system,
is
as good as it might be to actually in play.
Yeah, and then I decided that maybe I'm leaning too much on my stealth instinct or my talk my way out of this rewind if it doesn't work instinct. I'll just play out a fight. And then I got in this really weird situation where I aggroed basically every guard in the map, but found a bathroom they couldn't handle.
Yeah, I've done that with the game a few times, which I must be like a bug with the way that they.
Yeah.
If you're. I think so. One of the cool things about the way the actual tactical combat works is that it's like Crypt of the Necrodancer, unless they've changed it since I played it. Is it different? Yeah, that's right. So basically, like every time you move, the entire world moves a step. It's like Rogue, basically. Yeah, like Rogue. That's a much better description of what this actually is. Which is, you know, it's not like XCOM where you're moving into a position and then all the enemies are moving into a position. But the guards don't seem to have any good ways of zapping you out of cover. So, when I played it, they didn't have like grenades or ways of pushing you out of an exploit that you'd found. So, if you find the right angle on a doorway, I remember fighting, like I had the same situation as Chris where like it seemed like 40 guards were just coming at me for no reason. And I could just go left, right, shoot, left, right, shoot, and everything would miss and they wouldn't be able to flush me out of that little corner. So they had no way of going around it. So I wonder if that's just a problem built into the game.
Geometric little quirk.
Yeah.
And it was weird because, so they can destroy walls, certain walls.
Okay.
What, the walls that must fall?
Yes, the walls can fall.
The walls is falls.
Indeed they must. But when they don't, that's very powerful.
Yeah.
And so, but I found in a weird situation where I think the guards were convinced they could shoot through a certain wall, even though they couldn't.
Right.
So they were gathering up, which was annoying because I had to keep kind of popping my head around a certain corner to get them to come back around so I could shoot them. But they would all get caught in this corner. So lots of the guards, because they some of them fire shotguns or just like a spread of bullets, and those will collide with other guards and hurt them. And so they were shooting each other, desperate to drill through this wall that they couldn't get through, and it's obviously a bug. But this was the first time I'd figured out, I just encountered a system I hadn't seen, where I'd been in fights, and I'd seen that sometimes fights end in like a replay. So it does something that I've thought about, like, is a cool idea for a turn-based game where when the combat system is finished, you press the button, it's like drop it, and it plays everything you did back to you as a kind of like crazy, almost, you know, Nightcrawler blinking kind of time travel gunfight, which is a cool idea. It was a rudimentary animation in a lot of ways, but stylish idea. And then I did that, and I'd had this mad fight where I'd killed 40 guards plus in one crazy kind of running battle, which was just me bouncing around by a doorway. And that mode, then you press spacebar to end the combat, and that's when you get the replay. And the replay went on forever, and I couldn't figure out how to skip it. And it was just me bouncing, shoot, bouncy, shoot, run, dash, shoot, run, dash, shoot. And it has a combo meter, and there's like multipliers and bonus effects. And I was like, what game is this? Like, oh, is this the game? Like, oh, I've been just playing this kind of conversational stealth game that has some problems, but actually this is a tactical combo building firefight game. Oh, but then I got so many points because it broken that I broke the combo meter, and I got every single achievement for success in combat all at the same time, like every Steam achievement, which made me realize, oh, I've broken this, because they're called like your first big combo. Oh, you're getting better at this, and wow, look at that combo. And I got all of them, and I was like, okay, I've broke, like, shit. Like, and I know that's not the experience you're supposed to have as your way into that system either. But reading about it, so I did, you know, I don't want to take my cues too much from other people's experiences because I've had my own experience, but I did go and read reviews, and people are saying like, this is like XCOM meets Super Hot. It's like this, you know, I love, you know, people saying I love orchestrating this incredible time traveling gunfight and then watching it played back. And I just haven't seen that yet. I've just seen jank. I've seen legit bugs as well, like enemies shooting at me endlessly from outside of the level bounds and things like that. And like, it's been really well received. And like, honestly, this is one of those situations where, maybe not on Twitter because I don't really check Twitter, but like, do at me in principle, but do email us maybe if you have unlocked, because it is so different, and we don't want to applaud it for looking so different and for having such an interesting atmosphere, an interesting world to occupy. But holy shit, like, and I would never want to punish a game for doing something different and just not explaining itself well, beyond saying when, you know, it didn't explain itself well. But I just don't get it yet, and I really want to get it because it seems like it should be so good, and people I respect really like it, but it's just fucking hell. Like, it just, everything about it feels like it's crumbling, like the
walls are falling.
Indeed, yeah.
No. Resisted forces.
Yeah.
Yeah. I found that's exactly the same experience I had, which is, I mean, it was quite a while ago I played it in early access. So, with the upgrades, by the way, Chris, like, that was,
yes, there's loads of upgrades.
So there's a system, system wasn't quite in when I was playing it. That seems to be what they've been finessing.
Yeah, so there's some cool stuff, like, there's like a daily challenge mission where you get dropped in with a certain set of upgrades in a certain mission. I feel like I'm pressing my nose up against the glass of that at the moment. Like, if I understood what the fuck was going on, and if I understood what was expected of me, I just want to find a YouTuber who is very good at it, so I can look at it and go, oh, that's what being good at this game is. Because at the moment, I just feel like I'm breaking it every time I win. I'm breaking it when I lose. Which I don't get with other games that I think exist in similar territory. Like, to be honest, like, you know, this is weird, but Heat Signature is not a terrible point of comparison in terms of like, stop time and negotiate your way out of this gunfight type games about breaking into space. They've got very, very different, ambitions in a bunch of different ways, but like, you know, Heat Signature is successful at explaining to me I can kind of intuit what success looks, what a good run looks like very quickly versus what a bad run looks like. because of the mixed messaging around when stealth is appropriate, when it's not, when it's possible, when it isn't. For example, after those first few clubs, all guards aggro all the time when you're in any kind of radius around them. So stealth becomes both more and apparently less important. And it's like, that's exactly what I mean, I guess. It's like when suddenly all the clubs are full of flying drones and guards with danger signs all around their feet because that's the radius in which they'll detect you. I, as a player, came into that thinking, this is my cue to be mega careful. But actually what it might be is this is your cue to fight everybody and then rewind time, which is potentially really cool. But I just am not grasping it. Like there are, yeah, you're right, there are upgrades and things, but yeah, man. I'm doing a gesture.
He's doing
confounded.
He's sort of like a confounded gesture.
Yes,
yeah.
Thanks, Alex. I'm confounded. It was the highest up flute.
Have you been confounded recently, Tom?
More seduced, I would say.
Oh, flirty bar. Angry bar.
I've been playing Slay the Spire, which, just gotta lay it out there, it does sound like a euphemism for wanking. just gotta lay it out there. Not to dwell on it, but it's just a thing you've got to get past, I think, if you're gonna.
It's there to be acknowledged.
Yeah, I mean, it's a game about short, satisfying reward loops.
Just wow.
In which you climb up a giant tower and then deal approximately 700 damage to a massive organ. And then.
Oh, he's good. He is good.
And then you fall asleep, and you do it all over again. If you play this, if you play this on the Steam Link, the binding, for the mouse goes onto the right stick, and, the left click, which is all you really need, is on the right trigger. So this game indeed can be played one-handed.
You were crossing certain streams here, Tom.
And I can't stop saying the Spire, and now I'm blind.
Have you been daily challenging?
I have been daily challenging.
They seem very kind of extreme.
They are very good. Yes.
Yeah.
This is what I wanted to talk about, because we've talked about it on the pod before a couple of times, I think. Not me, but I think Tom talked about it. I think you talked about it as well, Alex.
Yeah,
so I think if you just go back a few pods, you can get the proper intricate overview of what it is. But basically it's a deck building game which you play cards to defeat enemies in about 3-minute bursts, and you go up like 3 tiers and modify your deck as you draw new cards and throw cards away. The cards are awesome. There are 2 classes. There's like a fighty dude and there's like a poison dude, and there's a third dude to be added. That's currently in early access. That's been worked on. But they added, I think like a month or 2 ago, like the daily challenge, where they add 3 modifiers that utterly break the game. And you get like 1 shot to register a score. You can play it as many times as you want until the next day, but only the first score gets registered. Huh. But the modifiers are so extreme, like, it's amazing. You just can't stop playing it. So for example, there's a modifier I came across the other day where it was just like, well, you could just draw cards from both decks. So when you defeat an enemy, you might get cards from the poison dude and also cards from the red dude. And let's see how those 2 systems like interact. I was only thinking, well, how the fuck do I build a deck? I've got like strats for both types of deck. And suddenly like, well, what if I just pile loads of strength on and then use the green attacks? And your mind just blows for the course of 1 daily run, and then it's gone the next day. And it's like, there's another one where whenever you play a card of any sort, it inflicts an extra, degree of slow on the enemy. And I think slow increases damage that they take. And I was running with the red dude, and I love running strength builds. And basically strength is a stat that you stack up on yourself that gives you a positive damage modifier to any attack cards you're playing. And brilliantly, there's a 0 cost strength boost card that only lasts the turn you play it, called Flex. And it's because it costs nothing. I thought, well, if I just build just take 10 of these if I opportunistically run into them. Every time I play one, it'll slow the enemy and make me stronger. And then if I play 1 attack card, I could probably just wipe stuff out in one go. And so I took that and I aimed for that, got some strength cards in the bag, and also started to get some like card draw, so that when you get really good at Slay the Spire, you get like a really elegant deck. And once everything's gone into your discard pile, your discard pile gets reshuffled and becomes your deck again, which is the classic deck builder thing. So if you've got loads of card draw and you constantly refreshing, and you're constantly just building up your strength. You're constantly just fucking flexing all the time. You can start to
get a sore arm.
One sore arm. Then start playing, and you just get a couple of attacks in as well that are just really powerful. And then by the end of it, like I just got to just slayed the boss, the second tier of 3, before I came out here. It's the reason why I was late today, actually. And
I shook his hand.
And the combo was just absolutely bang on. Like I'd just gotten it exactly where I wanted it. And, so I was getting like, coming out of the gate, I was getting like extra I was getting extra card draw, and then it was like flex, cleave, reshuffle, flex, cleave.
This just sounds kind of physically debilitating now.
The podcast was Thomas punching his hand. That's what that sound is.
I want to really communicate how good this feels. So when you get like a combo going in, say, the Spire, like the game really snowballs, and because is that a wink?
I don't think it was. I think he's on the train now.
That's it now.
He's
Yeah,
on the train.
on the way.
No, just keep going.
Yeah. So once your combo kind of gets going, I'm going to break Chris here. When you really hit the sweet spot before the first boss, then you kind of you can see quite far ahead of the game when you're going to say the Spire, when you're going to get all the way, and that's the reason why I recommend people play the daily challenges, which are very, very good.
Someone else.
Any questions?
I do have one question.
Yes.
This is going to sound so, well, actually, so, how does it balance against it? Like, are the bosses harder? Like, does it kind of or does it just make you just absurdly powerful?
Is it harder, Tom?
It's definitely, it can be harder. Depends on the upgrades. So some of them, make the enemies harder. Some of them give you insane benefits, and often it's like a combination of the two. So, you might get buffed enemies and then get something ridiculous. Buffed and well buffed enemies.
That's fine. There's nothing there. That's fine.
That's
we can
pretty
move on.
ordinary language. Yeah, I was trying to think of some of the other modifiers I've run into, but they really do feel really extreme. There was a brilliant one where, is it artifacts? Is it relics?
Yeah. I saw a screenshot, I think, that you posted of a screen full of artifacts.
It's just relics forever. And so, in this modifier, whenever you kill, so relics are amazing. They are just permanent upgrades for your character for that run. And they can just give you automatic armor, automatic damage every turn. They can just change the way you play the game. They can make entirely new decks viable. As soon as you draw one, you're like, wow, I can actually just build towards a different thing now. And once you get to know what they all are, as soon as you see like, oh, it's the low-hanging flute, I'll re-angle for,
sorry.
I'll re-angle my deck to...
It's fine. We've ended up in territory beyond that. And now kind of look back fondly on the days of the low-hanging flute where we were so young.
Yeah, so, in this particular run, every time you killed an ordinary enemy, and you could choose your route through, the Spire, and you can choose the one that's deliberately full of enemies, so every node by which you travel through it, you can just go for enemies rather than question mark rooms, rather than chests. So I was just racking up relics, and you just become fucking invincible, and it feels so good. It's really fun. It's really fun.
It's a game where imbalance is just fun.
A totally great thing for it, yeah. And, it's so, like, RNG based. You can just get fucked by the stuff that, the draw options you get. And I've been watching some people trying to speed play it on Twitch. And I think that the record as it stood like about a month ago was 5 minutes from start to finish. And watching that guy do it, it was just like I was going to say Handspeed. The speed of decision making, the click rate.
You were going to say Handspeed.
I stopped myself to spare you, Chris, but just pausing was enough apparently. Just the speed of decision making, and just quickly he picked up a card that damages all enemies on screen at the same time, and suddenly built his entire deck around that, and getting card draw and just like doing that repeatedly over and over again. There's another guy who got his deck down to 2 cards that would just endlessly recycle.
Oh my God.
And it was just an infinite combo that would just destroy everything and couldn't be, it was a one-turn kill on every.
Because it's basically a game in which you kind of, like, you have to react to what you're dealt, and therefore then you have to kind of suddenly manage your deck. Like, you have to sort of go, fuck, I've got to drop a load of cards somehow.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Or you've kind of, like, it's really interesting though. When you were watching that, were you watching a lot of, kind of game forfeiting when things weren't going their way, or were they persevering with stuff?
I think they wouldn't, because they were playing so quickly it was over in like 7 or 8 minutes anyway, so you just sort of see what you got out of it, and it was for the benefit of an audience, so it was getting frustrated about that was part of the entertainment, I think. But I think the good thing about it is that when you fail quite hard quite early. So, before the first boss, you can already tell. And at that point, you can ditch it if you think you're not going to get on the power curve.
Yeah.
Because you need to be on a certain ability to escalate towards the final boss is kind of what you're looking for when you're putting decks together. But it's a brilliant game, and it's in early access. It looks like it was thrown together in Photoshop in not too much time. I mean, it's not the greatest looking game, but that's something I quite like about it, because it has similar principles to a game like Ascension. It's Ascension which is
I played Ascension.
Yeah, and Ascension is just terrifying to look at. It's just like
I've tried to learn it several times now, and there's just so many places you put cards, and it's still too much.
Yeah, and
there's so many things on the cards.
I used to play quite a lot of Ascension actually, but you're right, it's one of the ugliest card games I've ever seen.
So busy and overwhelming. And one thing to say is why it's not overwhelming. Like it's very manageable. Your deck's very manageable. Yeah. Even though you're performing a lot of the same actions you're performing in Ascension, you're ditching cards, you basically put them into that part of the screen. You're drawing from certain types of deck depending on whether you open a chest or whether you fight a monster. It's basically kind of Ascension, but presented in a very different way and a much more user-friendly way. And the games are just much shorter and much easier to dip in and out of. If Slay the Spire gets an iPad, I'm dead. That's it. You'll find me like just in a closet somewhere, a skeleton, a half-finished Slay the Spire run.
A husk of a man.
Yeah, good.
That was very informative.
Thank you.
I spent a not insignificant amount of the last 10 minutes crying and drinking. And I haven't played Slay the Spire yet, and I was thinking about, is it still in early access?
It is, yeah.
Right. I think it's in the back bracket if I would like. I basically don't play anything early now. Even things I back on Kickstarters, I wait now, but.
Yeah, Slay the Spire is totally ready.
They can't really, I mean, they'll probably change around, but if they change around the decks now, they will continue change around the decks, for as long as the game is running.
They've just got like when you select the character that you want, there's just one that's, grayed out, and that's all they're working on at the moment. It's just adding that and getting it right.
Oh no, it's just the general prettiness levels. But then I quite like it's
fine once you get used to it, I think, yeah. Shall we do some questions?
I think it's about time we did, isn't it? Tom, you sound suddenly extremely mellow. Why would that be?
Just feel pretty chill.
Okay, good.
He's after all that activity, he's pretty chill now.
Fucking afterglow, man. Last question.
In the last
ready
episode,
for questions.
People wondered about the identity of Tom Seafuck.
He's here, everybody.
It was Old Man Senior from the amusement park.
If I go on the run, have you seen the news? Tom Seafuck spotted somewhere in Yorkshire, running towards the sea.
What are we talking about?
I don't know. Carry on.
Our first question comes from Duncan, who writes, "Hi, Crowbar and the Create. Christ often talks about verbs in video games." I think he means Chris. But
it's an apocryphal text that hasn't been quite unearthed yet.
There's something to think about in this.
There is, yes. Christ often talks about verbs in video games. Any good video game nouns, adjectives, or prepositions? Thanks, Duncan. Thank you, Duncan.
Content.
Wizard.
Wizard.
Spaceship.
Cromulent.
Gun. Wizard gun.
Nice wizard gun.
Yeah. Spire.
Use.
Using.
Flute.
Low.
Dark. Soul. Those are all the nouns. And now we'll move on to adjectives. Actually, no, hang on. Dark is also an adjective.
I've been spicing in some adjectives.
I said I'd use a verb.
Yep.
No.
To wizard a verb.
It's a wizard to use a verb.
What? To what? What did you just say?
Wizard is all three.
It is.
To wizard.
Here in my room, room.
Oh, that's absolutely wizard and a wizard.
Yeah, exactly. The omni word.
The most powerful game word.
Indeed.
In an adventure game, you'd click on something and it would go, I can't wizard that.
That's absolutely wizard.
Wizard off, will you? Preposition. Immediately.
I'm trying to think, I think that COD uses a lot of video game propositions when it's telling you where to go next. You know, when it's
follow.
Yeah, it's just follow.
It's the most powerful one of all.
Wizard, again.
Is that Tom's new game? Follow Wizard.
Follow
COD,
the Wizard.
Follow. It's sort of Call of Duty Wizard Tactical Breach.
Yeah, it is, yeah. To be honest, I think Tom might have solved this entire thing with the phrase tactical breach wizard. Yes. He might have gotten both an adjective, a verb, and a noun, in the right order.
What a devil.
One step ahead, as always.
I know.
Yeah. He is wizard.
Indeed. Next, I hope I'm pronouncing this right. Tomas writes, Dear Creighton Crowbar, one thing that's always bothered me about games is how they don't want to let you get to the end. In The Witcher 3, the clear indications that the end is near started about 18 hours before the game actually ended. What followed was gathering your allies for the final stand, going off to an island Trigger's Head stand, preparing for the main fight, then the fight itself, and then back to the main game with several more quests to do, fighting a few mini-bosses, gathering more allies, fighting more mini-bosses, going through the main final area and final fight, killing the main boss, going through the really final area, playing the epilogue sequence, and then being done. The Witcher 3 took this to a ridiculous extreme, but I've had a similar struggle with a lot of other games, both Knights of the Republic, but also Bioshock, Diablo 3, Mass Effect. I could stop playing at that point, but having devoted so much time and effort to get there, I just want to see things through. Can you think of games, endgame sequences that are actually fun, well thought out, and don't feel like a desperate move to get the players hooked longer? Cheers, Tomas. So I disagree with Mass Effect, which is predictable, but I do.
I disagree about The Witcher, which is predictable, but there you go.
Yeah. Tom?
I too disagree with this person, everything they believe in.
Thomas.
No, not really.
Thomas. No, this is
we're seeing Dark Tom.
Yeah.
Tom Seafuck is back.
What's gone wrong with me? Maybe it's like a Jekyll and Hyde thing with me. Like the fourth Creighton Crowbar guest is actually the mad alter ego.
Yeah, exactly.
Tom Seniac. Good game ending sequences. I mean,
so I actually genuinely loved the ending of The Witcher. I loved the slow and fond goodbye. There wasn't the kind of it had a crescendo at the end or towards the end, but then then the games often just stop there, which is obviously good for pacing in general. But with The Witcher, I'd grown to love, I didn't even grow, I loved being with Geralt, and I grew to love Ciri and to be in that world and to finish the game. Obviously there's a pre-DLC game, to finish the game in such a smooth and fond farewell-y kind of way. I absolutely loved, and it also had a lot to resolve. There were lots of things about his relationships which needed to be closed for the game to feel satisfying. And I thought that for me that was wonderful.
Likewise, the Blood and Wine expansion.
Oh, that was lovely.
It's a wonderful, not sorrowful, but it's just a really nice warm farewell to that entire universe.
Yeah.
Also I'd mention Mass Effect's, Citadel DLC, which is also, actually comes like...
It's an epilogue, really.
It's an epilogue, kind of chronologically is actually earlier becomes before the end, but is, again, an amazing goodbye and just a really nice ending, a very memorable ending.
And I think, I would genuinely say Mass Effect 1 because from the moment you get the kind of big series of revelations, in the penultimate kind of area onwards, it really is this, I think, a sprint to the end where things just keep escalating, which is, it's seriously it's my favorite, among my favorite BioWare endings. I think Dragon Age, the original Dragon Age, has a really good, it's a long finale. Like, this is the thing, like, maybe I'm just very much in a different camp on this, but like, I kind of want a 6-hour finale when a 6-hour finale is appropriate. Like, Dragon Age is actually another example of an RPG that doesn't just end on its big crescendo. It really doesn't stop ending. Just keeps going. But I like that about it because it's a long game. You spend 200 hours getting to that point. Another 6 to see it off properly is better than it just being over, which is a problem that Inquisition had. Inquisition just sort of ends. And yeah, it's again DLC set up so you go back to normal afterwards, but like, it's to do with proportion, I think. I think endings have to be proportionate to their
it's the
story.
number of things that they set up. You know, if you've got lots of threads going, you've got to close them all.
Not even just in terms of quantity of story that needs to be resolved. I mean, in terms of like, you know, you have to feel like you've really landed the thing. And for me, that means a big investment in the ending.
Yeah.
I would say that, in terms of like endings that are just great by themselves, both Portal games.
Yeah.
Like games that end really well.
Yeah.
Portal does.
It was interesting that Thomas brought up Bioshocks, because I get the feeling that's probably a comment about the end game of the first Bioshock, where you get the power rush at the end, and you kind of turn everything back on its head again, and it was unsatisfying, and there was a sort of an extra load of legwork you had to do after you'd felt that you'd done the main story and you'd done your, you know, going around Rapture and stuff. So I appreciate that there. I get the feeling that it's a list of games that you just didn't particularly enjoy as much as other people, which is cool, which is fine.
I was going back to Bioshock Infinite this week actually, and that's probably like a whole pod bit, so I should probably save it for next week or the week after. Otherwise we'll never finish questions. It's interesting though, how that game stands up now compared to how it was received.
Also, I should probably mention Bayonetta before we move on.
Oh, right.
Bayonetta has a phenomenal ending.
I'm like 2/3 of the way through the first one at the moment on the Switch.
Yep. Finish Bayonetta.
I like it a lot.
Because, like, you know how that game is ludicrous from the beginning?
Oh, yes.
Imagine what it would be like if that game never stopped escalating.
I can't. I mean,
You
I must
can't.
see it.
You can't, exactly, which is why you need to finish Bayonetta.
After his Slay the Spire experiences, will he survive this physically?
It's hard to say. At the moment in Bayonetta, I'm fighting giant sort of angel trains.
Yep.
That fire missiles at you. And
Have you done the Afterburner tribute level yet?
Which one's that one?
It's the one where she shouts, "Welcome to my fantasy zone," and then rides a rocket for about 5 minutes through space.
Not done that yet. That sounds good though.
Yeah. Not space, the sea. The other space, the wet space.
Under space.
Yeah. It's good. It's a good video game, Tom.
Yeah, it's really good.
Our next question comes from Zoe, who writes, "Hi all, what's your favourite New Game Plus experience, or which game do you think has done it particularly well? I just started playing Persona 5 again, and it seems particularly well suited to New Game Plus, as it takes out a lot of the faffing around, and allows for a far less stressful experience. Thanks for the continued podding joy, and depending on when this thing is read out, I hope you have /had a good time at Rezzed. Please say a special hello, whatever that may constitute, to my good friend Rahul if you see him out and about." Zoe. So we haven't gone to Rezzed yet, but we will have a nice time. I will have a nice time at Rezzed, and I will just say hello to whoever.
All the
More about that at the end of the podcast.
May I grasp for the low-hanging flute? And then immediately pass the flute on to Tom so we can talk about Dark Souls, the ultimate low-hanging flute.
As we've well established now, it's pod
It is
law.
the low-hanging flute.
Canon. Yeah, Dark Souls is quite good at a lot of things, isn't it, Alex? It's amazing how...
As someone who hasn't finished one of them, I have no idea.
I
love them.
Yeah, Dark Souls is...
And I die.
The New Game Plus introduces new items and types of, when you beat bosses, you get slightly differently worded stuff, which for a Dark Souls nerd means a lot if you're really getting into the lore. I can't remember whether it does shuffle around like a few enemy placements, like boss placements as well, just to kind of really suddenly catch you out in certain areas. But I think, Dark Souls as a New Game Plus game, it's more about taking the expertise you've gained through, 40 hours of combat in that game into, a new place and fighting through the Undead Burg again with this new level of mastery and expertise and knowledge. So the best New Game Pluses for me tend to be combat games like that. So stuff like Devil May Cry, where you go into a New Game Plus and you tend to have the full skill set that you've unlocked over the course of the first playthrough. And now you get to use that on the first half of the game when you didn't have that. And therefore it feels significantly different and it makes you feel really powerful as well. For me, that's the best execution of a New Game Plus.
Yeah. I learned that Minute has a New Game Plus.
Really?
Yeah. So rather than a minute, you get 40 seconds per life.
That seems like New Game Less.
Yeah. I haven't actually got to it yet, but apparently all of the little things that you do in the game, they're all actually tuned. The distance they are from the houses that you set out from at the start of your life are actually tuned for 40 seconds rather than a minute. So you can just get it. So it's the speed running bit.
Right. Yeah, I see. So it's like
it's
the
bit
minimum.
where you know what the things you've got to do are to get through the game, and therefore you are running for them.
I think I've always enjoyed the New Game Plus modes in BioWare games, not to return to that well again, but because secretly all BioWare games are slightly worse for being RPGs or shooters or whatever they are. They're really just story games about making pretend friends and going on an adventure, and then someone dies and you have sex with someone else and then the game is over. That's a BioWare game. That's why they're good. And really none of that is benefits from having to level people up, to be honest. The sort of second or third playthrough where you can just enjoy the story and not even really think about people's gear, I've always found quite stress relieving in a way. Because also it means your character kind of look consistent. People just have outfits and are good at the things they're good at, which is more like real people than, the kind of BioWare logic of like you make lots of friends and then you all learn how to do fireballs together. While
you
also
get extra stuff, like, so you get all the stuff that you had the first time played.
You normally just carry your equipment through, but because you will eventually hit the level cap, you end up entering a new playthrough, but with completely optimized characters. So there's no, almost the entire character development side of the game falls away completely. Depends on the game, but I've always quite enjoyed that. Didn't quite work in Mass Effect 1 because the best armor in that game was sort of odd black and salmon pink wetsuit, which never quite both worked for me and didn't as the kind of defining outfit for the crew of the Normandy SR1.
Did it confound you?
No, I knew exactly how I felt about it.
Okay. Good.
The next question comes from, apparently Jesus. But I don't believe this for a second. I think this is a joke, to be stressed, whereas I think the previous reference to Jesus was a typo.
There's a fine line.
Jesus writes, "Blessings upon you, Crate and Crowbar. It took a long time before my dad would let me play violent video games. For years I wasn't allowed to play anything with boobs or blood in it. I tend to play less violent games now, I think because I grew up with non-violent games and tend to associate gaming with karma challenges instead of violence. Do you think the games you grew up with, violent or not, have shaped the kinds of gaming experiences you enjoy now? Keep it real, Jesus."
Yeah, because I don't know what I think I've kind of probably said this before, but I'm kind of intrigued to see the forthcoming couple of decades of games that are made for and by the people who have grown up with Minecraft and Roblox and stuff. So, because I come from a generation that grew up with BBC and kind of Spectrum games that were punishing. And I spoke to Bennett Foddy a few weeks or maybe a few months ago after, getting over it with Bennett Foddy came out, and he was talking about some of his inspirations behind a game which is all about kind of, if you make a mistake, there's a good chance that you will undo all that you've done and end up back at the start. And he said that it was inspired in part by being Australian and being an Australian gamer in the, growing up in the 80s, in Australia, where the games that he could play were on Spectrum. I think he had a Spectrum or something like that, where, you have to spend ages waiting for the load, and then, they were punishing because they were short form games actually. And so the longevity was granted by the fact that, like, if you died, you'd be sent back to the start and things, coupled with the fact that being in Australia, the games were imported from the UK at very high prices, and you'd be waiting for months for them to actually make their way from the UK. And I sort of come from the same generation, but sort of in the UK, and I kind of feel a bit lost in big open-ended games because, and I don't know how much of this is because I'm just older and don't have the time to kind of invest in them, but I'm used to games kind of getting to the point quite quickly and, and being shorter and being, we were just talking about, I'm kind of going back on what we were talking about before, where I kind of expect games to have ends, and that kind of thing. I've been playing on, the Super NT lately, which is a kind of an emulator console for the Super Nintendo, and been playing some old favorites, my old cartridges, which has still got working saves on them for Mario Kart and Super Mario World and stuff like that.
Oh, right.
And they are just wonderful games still, and just wonderful, beautiful feeling games to play still. And been really enjoying the fact that I'm kind of gotten used now to, games expect you now to sit down for a fucking long time to play them, the session time expectations are quite long for most games now.
Yeah.
And it's really lovely to sit down with a game where you can literally play 4 or 5 minutes and you feel you get something from them.
I owned an original copy of, Rise of the Robots on SNES, and it was indeed immediately shit. It got right to the point of its obvious badness. But I had to play it. I played it an awful lot because that was like the one game I get for 6 months or whatever. And so I'm getting these weird characters in that game, just like sort of jankily thrusting. It was a beat 'em up, thrusting at each other, not connecting but doing damage nonetheless.
You couldn't jump over it. Is that you couldn't jump over
right.
each other? It was a beat 'em up where you couldn't jump over.
I'm sure jump was in the game.
You could jump, but you couldn't get. Yeah, it wasn't high
just
enough
like
to actually.
It was more like a realistic jump.
It was just very real. Yeah, one dose of realism in Rise of the Robots. They
the
couldn't
robots.
rise.
Hop of the robot.
Bunny hop of the robots. That game was toilet. I can't, because I was playing Rise of the Robots, I think, and games are just so much better now. I've just almost no connection between the games I was playing of that age and the games I'm playing now. I could probably vaguely trace a love of Diablo back to Golden Axe, or the games where you just smack stuff up that you just, generic copy and paste enemies that run at you and then you blow them up.
I was very into games for me were like an extension of superhero comics and films and things. So I always wanted to kind of embody the coolest character and do the coolest thing, which is, I think I may have said this on the podcast before, but that's why I was a Sonic kid rather than a Mario kid.
Oh my God. Oh, Jesus Christ.
Well, honest to God though, if find the child that aspires to be Mario, and I have found you a child that will grow up to be a productive member of society.
Well, that's the one bit I haven't
jumping
succeeded
on
at.
mushrooms and flying down pipes like any adult might be expected to do. Mate, Sonic was the kind of sense of speed. Like, Sonic was the tech demo platformer really of the 90s, right? Like, that's kind of what it was. Yeah. It was the spectacle of going really, really fast.
On inferior hardware, of course.
Jesus Christ. Sorry, sometimes if you say the wrong words in the wrong sequence, Alex just turns into the Edge obelisk, and you've got to get a specialized forklift to get him out of the house again. He's made of solid obsidian now. You can hear him laugh, but that's just emanating from within the kind of echoing obsidian plinth
vibration.
Yeah.
Chambers.
Anyway, this is why Sonic the Hedgehog is good, and you can have a geological event of your own over there. It's fine. It was about going extremely quickly, which is a sort of exciting fantasy, right? And it wasn't the best platformer by any technical means, but it was about the fantasy of that, and that probably directly relates to I like any game where you go fast. I still do. That's why I like Tribes. That's why I like Devil Daggers. Even I do still get a huge kick out of any game where there's a sense of sort of velocity and chaos and momentum rather than precision Nintendoid kind of design, I kind of
thoughtfulness and delight.
Yeah, I guess. And obviously I've watched
the Obsidian Chamber has spoken.
I've watched my childhood love of Sonic and my extensive collection of Sonic the Hedgehog comic books become a form of Tumblr perversity as I've got, and that's fine. That's cool. I'm glad that stuff has a future of some sort, because God knows it isn't in games. I wouldn't, Godspeed everybody on that ship. But for me, it died there and turned into just a love of going very quickly in other forms. I was also really into telling extravagant lies about things that were possible in the Command and Conquer series.
Did you know what you can do with Tanya?
Yeah.
She can blow up. Yeah.
It doesn't have destructible terrain. I made that up at age 6.
Oh, nice. Good.
And in that sense, that is also continued long into my adulthood, where I continue to say things that aren't true about video games, but now I get paid. So yeah, basically that for me, the template was set very early and didn't deviate whatsoever. Alex writes, but not that Alex, a different Alex. Hello. Sorry, I've had quite a lot of rum.
Hello,
Criterions. Egad, you've been cursed with dreadful gamer vision. Shit.
My game of vision is red and pulses.
Oh God.
Is yours green with a tribal tattoo?
I don't know what you're asking me, Alex.
Alex, I have no idea what you were getting at.
I don't want to puncture it by explaining it.
Is it like some sort of like predator view mode?
I think so.
Like some sort
But
of...
inspired by kind of gamer
peripheral like Mountain
things.
Dew sheen over everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's mine.
Like, it's like the Predator's view mode, but when those triangular cursors lock in, they're just Doritos.
Sponsorship detected.
Exactly. And instead of heat, it's just the relative intensity of a given take.
Logitech G Tech, whatever it's called.
Yeah, exactly. What? You just said the word Logitech for almost no reason.
Because it's logos, gamer. Oh man,
we're so out of touch, Alex, from whatever wavelength you're operating. So,
Alex,
what is gamer vision?
It's the point. It's just the point in the podcast.
Yeah,
where
everything goes wrong.
Yeah.
I drank a lot of rum while Tom was talking about wanking. I mean, Slay the Spire.
Did it help? Did it help? Tell me if it helped.
With what?
Just. That's a parameter for you to decide.
So the question is, you've been cursed with dreadful gamer vision and shall live out the rest of your days seeing the world through a filter of visual language tropes and UI prompts seen in AAA games. What ordinarily mundane tasks are enhanced? What suddenly becomes unbearable? Press F to pay respects. As ever, thank you for the delicious pods, Alex, aka an angry barnacle.
I think it's the, because I've been playing a lot of Far Cry lately. I think it's the kind of like very deliberate, but kind of somehow, sort of slow kind of getting in the car animation that's unstoppable or going down the ladder. So you can imagine if you're kind of going around the house or kind of committing yourself to any act. And as soon as you decide to open the door, your vision goes down, the hand comes out, grasps the doorknob, pulls it open,
you committed.
The swooping through the doorway and it's, oh God, I didn't mean to go through the doorway. I just wanted to pick up the sock that was on the floor.
Yeah, seeing the prompt appear and then accidentally attaching yourself to a ladder that it'll take you 5 minutes of faff to get off would be a disadvantage. It would be a massive disadvantage in life. I just wanted to go up the stairs.
So I was thinking about this today, weirdly, before I'd even read this question. Because I do a lot of walking around the house, picking up cups and putting them in the dishwasher. Like, that is like not insubstantial part of my life.
Is this something that Pip sort of puts out for you?
Yeah. She does cups everywhere.
Thoughtful. It's your exercise.
My inability as a human being to hold maybe more than 7 mugs at the same time safely when they're variously full of tea and coffee. That highlights the lack of an inventory as a concept, really, as it applies to day-to-day human existence. You don't have an inventory, you got hands and fingers. However, this also then, like, that little line of thought led me to think of, there's always the process of emptying the dishwasher as well. That you have to do before you can refill the dishwasher. These are the two. This is the ebb and flow of life. And,
the eternal pendulum of domestic life.
Exactly. And so, but what if instead of me simply like opening the door of the dishwasher, pulling the shelves out and finding places in cupboards, what if every time I wanted to open the dishwasher, it suddenly grew until it occupied the entire center of my vision, glowed with like a kind of golden halo effect, shook, and then opened like a loot chest.
Oh yeah.
A shower of light.
Yeah. And then those things just automatically filtered away to the relevant parts of my inventory, which in this case would be the kitchen cupboards where those cups and plates belong. Like, that would be incredible. That would save so much of my time. And actually I would probably pay in order to have that be the experience of emptying the dishwasher. That would probably be the single aspect of my life where I would definitely gamify the shit out of it.
Can I let you into a kind of a periodic thing that I do while walking sort of somewhere is, it's just slightly shameful, but, kind of stamina systems.
Yeah.
And you kind of, I got to go there. I've got to get to where I'm going quickly, or it's a boring sort of over-familiar route and you kind of just want to add some interest to it. I kind of walk quickly, but not in such a way that it's embarrassing, but it's not speed walking or anything, but walking quickly and imagining a little stamina meter going down, and then you slow down. Oh, just have a little rest, let the stamina meter fill again.
So, does this artificial thing you've invented in your brain actually, do you slow down artificially? Like, could you go further?
Yeah.
So,
Oh no, I'm fully physically capable of maintaining the speed that I had established. But because my internal
the logic you're operating on in this game
has depleted, I do slow down a little bit.
Is there like a kind of active reload? So you do a little hop skip, a little hop skip at the right point, and suddenly you're regenerated, you're ready to go.
I could add this. Cliffy B. What a man. What a designer.
Great innovation.
Active reloads are fucking great.
It is
good.
I had a whole thought about this, but it's been deleted from my brain by the thought of active reloading and walking. Tom? So put you on the spot.
The giant, enormous sky arrows or kind of like street arrows that appear to guide you relentlessly to your location in games. I mean, that's an obviously useful thing, but I worry that it becomes a drawback given that life has many stacking objectives, and they're often it isn't just a primary objective if you're just sitting at home but you've got objectives, right? Just life objectives about places you want to be in 5 years, things you want to do, that restaurant you want to go to, and suddenly your vision is just a fucking blaze of blobs, scattering out across the world, and you're
you think about it, if video game characters had so if the largest objective arrow represented the thing that was most important to you at a given point in time, then every video game character would every 4 to 6 hours be by need a poo.
Giant brown arrow appears, just guiding you to the nearest.
This way. Cause,
need a Snickers bar.
Exactly. So the one I was going to suggest is, I tend to, arrive early for things. I have a bit of an issue with being the first person to arrive at the pub, for example, or at a given, wherever we're meeting, whatever we're doing. And, that's obviously awkward. What I would like would be the system from a AAA game where those doors don't physically even fucking exist until my friends are there to open them for me. So I wait by the door of the pub. And the checkpoint just sort
bumping
of
yourself
hovers
up against
over the door, which is just a flat picture of a door for the time being. And then my friend arrives, and obviously we're ready to begin the social.
Swept into a cutscene.
The social cutscene, and they open the door, and then I'm allowed through. That would solve me a lot of getting there early while the assets are still loading.
Just scrape your way through a very kind of narrow aperture so to give you the time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what you can do is crouch jump sideways into the wall of the pub until you glitch through the wall of the
pub. Guess this is a lock-in now.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not leaving.
Don't do that, kids. The next question comes from Simon, who writes, Dear Bait and Switch Bar, recently I've noticed that I have extremely low tolerance for hot objects. I can barely hold on to a freshly toasted bagel for more than a second without needing to fling it roughly in the direction of a plate. I realize this is ironic as, given the choice, I will tend to pick fire as my prime elemental affinity for wizards and other magically inclined characters in games. Do any of you have any personal limitations such as this which would make you poorly suited for the kinds of characters you tend to play as? Many thanks. Simon. I love the fact that I love just thinking about the entire thought process that led to the writing of this question more than anything else. I think it's very much described in the question.
I have trouble with hot toast, but on the other, I like fire wizards.
I mean, not to demean the question at all. It's a good question. It's just, that's great. And it's because this is almost certainly not just an example. This is literally the moment this question occurred to Simon.
I mean, almost everything about games is the things that I literally shy away from in real life.
Well, yeah.
Like running everywhere. That's something that I tend to not want to do. Putting myself into
active reload in place, in which case you fucking motor down that highway. 3 minutes flat.
What if, this is not the question, but what if wizards experienced throwing fireballs like you, the question asker, experienced hurling a surprisingly hot bagel half onto a plate?
If it's that hot.
Every fireball is like, oh fuck!
We need to take this to Tom Francis when he's animating his new game, and animate it as though it's a hot potato that you really need to just get the fuck away from you. So I had a thing. I'm not sure how relevant it is really.
Yeah, that's fine. I was just talking about.
I was thinking recently, I'm worrying on a kind of low level about this. Alex is already laughing. Quite seriously, I mean,
yes.
I've noticed that.
What about your real life could possibly have informed how you play games?
I have noticed that recently, when I've been approaching automatic doors, they've been opening much later than they used to.
Really?
As they're just like, I have to actually almost
they can see self-confidence, I'm sure of it.
I'm very confident
edging towards it. Well, you won't notice me, but
I'm very self-confident when I'm going into a supermarket to get some food to stuff my face with. I'm very confident about that mission. So I don't think it's a matter of motivation that the door isn't detecting. What I am worried that I'm somehow part of my soul has eroded. There's something that the door isn't.
I don't think
the door isn't
the automatic
seeing.
doors sort of detectors are based on soul recognition.
You don't think it's or I might be part phantom now. Something has stolen something.
You've become hollow.
Something from me. That,
yeah, exactly. You actually need to have. You need to be fully, you have to use some humanity.
Consumer humanity.
Yeah, I need to mash a humanity into my chest, and then I'll be able to more efficiently go through automatic doors.
So here is a game. Do you do the kind of walking? So I take it then you don't do the walking at the automatic door, hoping that it'll open just before.
Well, no longer. No, I'm not confident now. I suppose that has affected my confidence because I get right up to them and then they open. I have to kind of wait and kind of negotiate with the door and to kind of please let me in. Please. I need my fish fingers.
I'm here to buy fish fingers
does this have to
like any normal member of society.
But I'd worry that, my inability to do this would carry through into games and I'd never be able to complete.
Is this because you have a fondness for stealth characters in games, Tom? Because you don't
sidling round the side of the door.
Yeah, just sneaking up on it. Crouch walk.
You got the perk, which is invisible to security cameras or something.
And then the secondary perk where you can see its sight vision. So you're going around.
So maybe I've taken a perk I can't untake. I've taken this stealth perk. But it turns out like a genie's gift to secretly be a curse. And now I can't get into my local co-op anymore. I'm furious.
You have the ability not to be seen, and yet you can't go into most major shops.
That'd be amazing if the Deus Ex, where you got for invisible to security cameras. That sounds great. But then the game ends 60 years later, I don't know, 60 years later, Adam Jensen's long gone. Adam Jensen's grandkids are why don't we have any photos of Granddad?
Granddad went home and all his automatic cameras. Doors locked him inside and he couldn't go out to the shops.
Cameras can't see him anymore because of a perk he took.
I think this answers the question.
No, yeah. Well, I mean, I'm 5'5" and pretty slow, which means that I can't be any of the game characters.
A morose moment of contemplation on the pod there.
Going through all the game characters in my head.
Like, oh, no.
Exactly. Alex, have you ever killed a tree with your bare hands?
No.
Then exactly.
I've kind of flailed at one.
Have you punched a tree in real life? You're going to say that to my face?
Nope.
Okay.
Never done that.
Our final question is more of a PSA from our. Sorry, I'm having a bit of a
The reflux.
moment.
The reflux. The reflux. 80s song.
More like Radical Low. Why is it always like this when you're in my house?
He's like, okay, Tom started the wank stuff.
I didn't know such thing.
I apologize at the start.
You did.
It's a serious video game criticism.
My heart is
We're
pure.
all complicit in this. Anyway, our last email is more of a PSA from our community. Oddwood writes to let us know basically that he's posted registration info for the next round of community tournaments in our Discord server. This is a series of community tournaments in a variety of multiplayer games.
What kind of games are they?
Like Rocket League. You put me on the spot there, Alex.
Jack and Daxter.
I'm doing a face.
Rise of the Robots.
Rise of the Robots. Yep, definitely.
About time. This got the
Yeah.
tournament
It's
recognition.
about
that we
time.
said.
We should clarify that if you jump more than 2 feet, you'll be immediately disqualified.
So you could do that because you can probably do, there's probably emulators that will do kind of, net play for,
Are there?
for probably,
You're just making that up.
maybe. No, I'm definitely making it up, but it might be true. It would
That
be
is-
nice to do a
That's
Rise of the
attitude
Robots.
that wins GMAs. Good. Well, I just thought I'd let them know. I'll put a link in the show notes to the actual proper full details. So if people want to get involved and, get involved in community competitions, they absolutely should. I'm sorry. I've really had too much rum by this point. We should end the podcast. That is legitimately the final email. However, if you would like to send us a question for a future episode, you can email us at questions@crateandcrowbar.com. You can also tweet us at Crate and Crowbar. Find us on YouTube at youtube.com/Crate and Crowbar. And as ever, thanks very much to our Patreon backers. Your support is cherished. And you can find out more about our Patreon at patreon.com/Crate and Crowbar. If you are listening to this prior to Saturday, the 14th of April, we will be doing a live podcast at Resd in London, Tobacco Dock in Wapping, which is happening at 4:30 on Saturday, the 14th of April. We'll be going on from 4:30 till about 6, at which point people will probably be going to the pub, which will be nice. Obviously it'd be great to see people there. It was a lot of fun last year. Looking forward to doing it again. You do need a ticket for the Saturday at Resd in order to attend, but that ticket gets you to the entire show, including all the games and everything else, including our bit. It was full last year, so do recommend getting there early-ish. I don't know. But, we did have a full house last year, so I don't think we have to turn anybody away, but I wouldn't want anyone to be disappointed, so maybe get there 10 minutes before. I don't know. I'm still talking. And it's happening again, the rum thing. Alex, what's your Twitter?
Rotational, ROTATIONLAL. No.
Alex,
Not now.
no.
We're on the final stretch.
I thought I did quite well with that outro, given the condition I was in moments before. Look, I'm going to transcribe whatever it is the fuck you just said, and I'm putting your Twitter handle in the show notes as that.
Apologies to whoever's Twitter handle that is.
Tom.
I'm PCG Ludo, which is LUTO.
And I'm at C Thurston, that's CTHURSTEN. Thanks for listening, everybody.